Do you think we need to start the YouTube live right now? We're 15 minutes out. Let's
Mm-hmm.
start. Okay, never mind.
Remember how long it took me the last time to figure out how to disable the chat?
Oh, okay.
And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I don't remember how I did it.
Do you think we need to start the YouTube live right now? We're 15 minutes out.
Church, when you have a second, will you send me the Google Doc link? Because I had it and then I closed the tab and lost it.
I don't have it either now.
Okay, I'll wait for Lily to get on because she can give it to us.
See, now I can't crack jokes.
Thank you, Kendra. And Lillian Condra, same thing as last time. If you could rename me whenever you have a moment, just so it doesn't say Texas on there.
Absolutely. I'll do it right now.
Thank you. All right, everyone. I'm Jillian. I'm your trainer from Sandy Hook Promise. I'm going to get us started. I think we're all here, but definitely if you know that there's like a classroom coming or people are getting settled, you can take an extra couple minutes. That's cool. All right. So I'm going to kick us off. Just so you know, there's a questions Google Doc that's open. Teachers are going to ask you to write in that. So just if your students have questions, students raise your hand, send a message to your teacher, let them know so they can put that question in the Google Doc. Again, the Google Doc is only for teachers, but we'll have this kind of whole session at the end where I go through all the questions. So if anything comes up while I'm talking and you think of it, if you kind of have any questions for me specifically about things I mentioned or about kind of how this applies to you, put that in the Google Doc. That's what it's there for. All right, I'm going to get us started. Today we're doing the Say Something program, which is not rocket science, not anything I think like super outside of anyone's comfort zone, not anything super wild, but hopefully it's a helpful conversation and a helpful skill set just to get you thinking about how you get a friend or a classmate help when you're concerned about them. So our goal today is that everyone will leave understanding how to get help for a friend or a classmate when they're in a space when they're thinking about hurting themselves or hurting somebody else. And we're going to do that by practicing 3 steps. The first step is looking for warning signs and threats. The second is acting immediately and taking it seriously. And our final step is say something, making sure that you say something to a trusted adult in your life to get a person help. So let's dig into each of those steps more specifically. I want to start off by looking for warning signs and threats. So the good news is that people show us all the time what's going on with them, right? What they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're going through. And that also applies to when somebody's in a space where they're thinking about hurting themselves or somebody else. They let us know in a lot of ways, big and small, what's going on with them, what they're thinking about, what they're planning. So a lot of people show us warning signs. And a warning sign is just a thought, a feeling, an action, or a behavior that shows us a friend or a classmate is in need of help. So they might be emotional warning signs. Somebody all of a sudden is really irritable. They're flying off the handle over really small things. They're getting angry over really small things. They have no patience for anybody. They're super quick to anger. They go from calm to angry in like 10 seconds. It's really quick. And this might be somebody who's always maybe had a temper, but especially want to look out for this for somebody who's normally calm and all of a sudden starts blowing up and having these big moments of anger, these big mood swings. We might notice somebody withdrawing from their friends, and that could be in person. Suddenly somebody doesn't want to hang out as much, or they're not talking as much when you do hang out, or on social media, someone's not posting as much, or when they do post, it's kind of heavy things. Someone's not replying to text, and when they do reply, it's maybe kind of these angry moments or these intense moments. That's a warning sign. Someone might also show us in their statements or the behaviors that they're mocking other people, and that could be based on a real or perceived difference. So it could be something completely made up, like I don't like their clothes, but it could be a difference in race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, disability, or physical appearance. And something I want us to keep in mind is that when we're thinking about someone bullying another person, often we think the person who we need to get help for is the person being bullied, and that's 100% right. But at the same time, the person who's doing the bullying is also showing us they need help, they need support. Because normally people act out by bullying other people when they've lost control or a sense of power in another place in their life, maybe at home, maybe with their family, and they try and find it by bullying someone at school. So they're looking for that sense of control, that sense of power, that sense of kind of feeling like they're owning the room, they're owning the situation. And that's often somebody showing us a warning sign. Something's going on in their life that makes them feel like the only way they can feel confident or comfortable in themselves is to make fun of others. So yes, we want to have, our eyes and ears open. Is someone being bullied? But also we want to keep in mind what's going on with the person doing the bullying. Both people in that dynamic are showing us they have a warning sign. We might also hear directly from a friend that they're thinking about hurting themselves or someone else. And when we get to this point where it's gone beyond just kind of general, kind of vague signs into specific language about hurting themselves or someone else, we've moved into the category of a threat. So a threat is when a person communicates an intent to harm themselves or somebody else. Classic examples of threats would be someone should blow that place up. Life isn't worth living. I'm going to take her and her friends out. They're going to regret they've ever met me, or you'd be better off without me. And I always focus on you'd be better off without me because that was my first experience with someone showing me a threat. And it happened when I was in 6th grade. Just for context, when I came to middle school, I came from a really small elementary school, and then I came to this big middle school and was like, oh, I don't know anyone. This is really scary. This building is huge. I don't know what's happening. And so I was like, I'm just gonna, on the first day of school, just keep my head down, keep my eyes down, and wait for people to talk to me. And whoever talks to me first will be my friends. Like, that's it. That was my policy. And the first person who talked to me was a girl named Sabrina. And I was really lucky because she was like the most outgoing person in her grade. She knew everybody. She had a bunch of friends from elementary school. Like, she knew exactly what was going on. She figured out school on like the first day. So I was like, great, this is perfect. I don't need to make any more friends. I'll just be friends with Sabrina. This is perfect. But over the course of the fall of our 6th grade year, I noticed a lot of these changes in her. I noticed a lot of these warning signs. She went from this person who was super friendly and talked to everyone and really bubbly to somebody who kind of picked fights with people a lot of the time and would get really angry over nothing. And then she started getting into that bullying behavior. She would make fun of people to kind of make herself feel better, make herself laugh. And it would be over really stupid things. It would be over just like the shoes they were wearing or somebody's haircut. And she kind of became someone who I didn't really enjoy being friends with. I wasn't as comfortable with her. So I kind of took a step back. And if you've done that before, when someone's shown you a warning sign or a threat, I understand that happens, but I want us now to know moving forward, what can we do if somebody does show us a warning sign or a threat? Because they're letting us know they need help. And as I was stepping back from Sabrina, her need for support and friends was growing, even though she didn't really have the language to express that. But over our Thanksgiving break, she started texting me that she wasn't going to come back to school on Monday. She wasn't going to come back after the break. She didn't want to be in school. She didn't want to be in the world. And that we'd be better off without her. You'd all be better off without me. And I didn't know what to do. I froze in that moment because I didn't know who to tell her what to say. And if you've ever had a moment like that, that's okay. But going forward, I want us to know how we get somebody help and how we do that. So keep in mind, the warning signs and the threats that you interact with might be face-to-face, might be conversations you're having or comments people are making. But a lot of the time, they're things that are happening via text or on social media platforms or on threads that we're a part of. So keep in mind, this can happen in the physical space of your school, but it also can happen in your school life beyond the walls of your classroom, right? It can happen when you're online. It can happen when you're texting people. If we do see, hear, or read a warning sign or a threat, we want to act immediately and seek help. And all the time people tell us like, oh, well, I knew it was a warning sign. I knew it was a threat, but I thought someone else was going to notice it and they were going to tell someone, I thought it was going to pass and they'd feel better tomorrow. People often say, like they're too young to hurt themselves. Like they just want attention. They're just being dramatic. And that's very much the mindset I had with Sabrina. I was like, we're in 6th grade. We're 12. Like she's not going to do anything. But in reality, it doesn't really matter what age somebody is. If they're having a real mental health crisis, they need support and they need care. And I also bought into this idea of like, oh, it's somebody just looking for attention, right? It's somebody who likes drama, who likes to create a scene. I was like, that's just what she's doing. A lot of the time, people are creating drama or looking for attention because they are asking for help and they just don't have the language or they don't quite know how to ask for help or who to ask. So they kind of pick a fight or they go for attention because they want people to ask them how they're doing. They want people to check in with them and they don't quite know how to do that. So don't always mistake somebody kind of picking a fight or going for attention as something that is just them, making drama. It could be because they want you to check in with them and see what's going on with them. I think often something I hear all the time is this idea of like, I'm going to wait until the perfect time. I'm going to wait until it's a big enough deal. Or like, I don't think it's really a big deal because they announced it publicly. So 2 things. First of all, the reason people announce things publicly, whether it's face-to-face or on social media, is again, because they want help. They're asking for help. They just don't quite know how to do it. If they, don't ask for help, then they're not really, in a space to get it. But keep in mind when people are telling you what's going on with them, telling them about their plans, it's because they want you to see them and know them and support them. The second thing I always like to talk about is the idea of like a big deal, like all of us are like, I'll wait until it's a big deal. Your definition of a big deal might be different than someone else's. It's a sliding scale, right? We all have different experiences. We all have different histories. What you think of as an intense experience might not be for someone else and vice versa. So don't wait until it's something really pressing or really intense. If you have even like a small feeling that this is a weird vibe, even if it's 1% out of 100% that makes you feel uncomfortable or makes you nervous for somebody, trust your gut. You have really good instincts. If you're thinking you're concerned about somebody, always take action. We want you to be upstanders, not bystanders. And I think we all know this word bystander, right? It's somebody who watches something happen and just kind of lets it move on by, doesn't worry about it. Upstanders are people who take an action and make a change. And we can think about this in the global level or the national level, right? People who lead social justice movements, people who make real huge change in society. We can also think about the micro level, so teeny tiny. If you at any point in the past year have held your door open for somebody who's walking into a store, or, picked something up that somebody else dropped, or let your friend know, like, oh, this is the homework because they were sick and missed class. If you've done anything that was helpful to another person at any point in the past year, you were an upstander. And I think a lot of us probably have done an upstander action in the past week or in the past 24 hours, right? We do these things all the time without even noticing them. I want you to get in the habit of actively being an upstander. So not just those subconscious things of like, oh yeah, I picked up someone's pencil because I dropped it, but also taking actions that make people feel safe and comfortable in school. So I do want to take a moment because I think people's gut reaction when we do this program is, I don't want to be a snitch. I don't want to be somebody who people can't trust. I don't want to be somebody who, people don't feel like they can talk to or confide in. And that's not what I'm asking you to do. So there is a big difference between telling on someone or snitching and saying something. And I'll kind of explain the difference. So snitching or telling on someone is something you do for personal gain or reward, right? It's something that makes you look better than another person, or you get some sort of prize or reward, or in some way makes one person look bad and you look good. And that's what you're going for, is personal gain. So classic example, if you ever told on a sibling because they weren't where they were supposed to be, or they didn't do their chores, or for whatever reason you told on them, that was you doing something for personal gain. You looked good, they looked bad, maybe they got in trouble. Maybe, let's say, hypothetical example from my own life, if like they were watching something you didn't want to watch on TV, they got in trouble, and then you got the TV to yourself. Like, that's classic example of snitching, right? Saying something is completely different because there is no reward that makes you look better than someone else, right? This is an act of care. This isn't something you do because you want to get someone in trouble or you want to make someone look bad. It's something you do because you don't want them to be alone and to suffer in silence. You want to take care of them. So saying something is always an act of care. It's an act of help, and it's selfless. Telling on somebody is very selfish. It's something you do to kind of protect yourself and make yourself look good. Saying something is something you do as an act of care to serve and to protect other people. So how do we do that? We do that by saying something to our trusted adult. And our trusted adult is just somebody in our life who's an adult with the experience and the resources to get another person help. So our trusted adult will look different for different people. I'm going to go through a couple of examples, but I think a lot of us, if you just had this question in your mind about like, who's the adult I go to when I need advice, when I need help, when I need somebody to kind of look after me, to take care of me. And a lot of us probably have a person pop into our mind right away, right? I'll talk us through a couple of examples in case somebody didn't pop into your mind automatically. So really common, a lot of people have a teacher who's a trusted adult. And that might be a teacher who you have right now, or a teacher who you had in the past in a different year, a different school. It could be your school administrator, so your principal or your vice principal. It could be your school counselor or your psychologist, maybe somebody who works in the front office who you see every day. It could be your coach if you're on a sports team, your director if you're in a choir or a theater group. It could be whoever you live with, so your parent or your grandparent or your guardian. It could be a friend's parent, right? If you live with, if you live close to a friend and you hang out at their house all the time. It could be a family member who you don't live with, but you're still close to. So a grandparent, an aunt and uncle, an older cousin. It could be a youth group leader, whatever you're involved with, whatever kind of is a place where you spend time. If there's an adult who you really trust, who you really feel like you can talk to. Keep in mind, for some of us, maybe no one is coming to mind. Maybe there's no one who popped into your mind. Maybe there's no one who's on this list, and that's okay. Instead, you can go to a placeholder trusted adult. And a placeholder trusted adult is just somebody who you can go to today or this week if you need to talk about anything you've seen, if you kind of noticed a warning sign or a threat. Maybe they're not someone you're super close to, but they are a person who has the resources to get someone help. So if you can't think of anyone, your placeholder adult should be the person whose class you're in right now. So whatever period you're in right now, the person who's teaching this class, that can be your placeholder trusted adult. I'm going to give us some homework at the end of assembly today. If you want, you can get started on it now while we're working together. But I'm going to have everybody create a trusted adult list. And that's a list of 3 people who are trusted adults who you can talk to if you notice a warning sign or a threat. Not everyone is going to get to 3 people, and that's okay. But have us think of 3, because sometimes our trusted adult maybe is not going to pick up their phone. Maybe they'll be busy. Maybe they'll notice our phone call like an hour later. We want to make sure that we always have backup people we can talk to. So I go for 3. If you can't get to 3 trusted adults, that's totally fine. But keep in mind, again, you can use that placeholder trusted adult. You can use the person whose class you're in right now. So quick moment, if you are ever in a life-threatening situation where you feel like your life or someone else's life is in danger, someone is about to hurt themselves or other people, you can always call emergency services right away and then talk to your trusted adult. And keep in mind, if you're distance learning or hybrid learning, you maybe aren't seeing your trusted adult face to face in the way you used to. So you want to be sure you have contact information for them. That might be an email, it might be a phone number, it depends on how you keep in touch with them, but make sure you have that and add that to your trusted adult list so that you understand how to get in contact with them. So my trusted adult list when I was in middle school would have been my mom and my English teacher, who I was super, super close to, and my grandmother. And I had phone numbers for my mom, phone numbers for my grandma, and an email address for my English teacher. So that would be what my trusted adult would look like. Keep in mind, there might be times when your trusted adult isn't available, and that's okay. There are 2 resources here for you. And I encourage you, if you want to take a screenshot, if you want to write these numbers down in your notebook just to have them, these are 24/7, 365 hotlines that you can always use. The first is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's 1-800-273-8255, and it's a phone call. So you'll pick up the phone, you'll get someone else on the other end, and you'll have a conversation. The second is Crisis Text Line. You text 741-741, and it's all via text. So no phone call, no speaking. Think about what you are more comfortable with. Some of us are more comfortable on the phone, some of us are more comfortable with text. The one difference between the two, I will say, is that people often talk faster than they text. So keep in mind with Crisis Text Line, it might take a minute to get your response. Normally it doesn't take more than 2 minutes, but it just might take a minute because people are texting, and that's a little slower than talking. So keep in mind, what's your preference? And the other thing to know about these lifelines is they're not just for people who are thinking about hurting themselves, they're also support. So if you're supporting a friend or supporting somebody who's going through something really intense, you can use these lifelines and the counselors will help you out. So I'll give us a couple seconds just to copy those numbers down. All right. Let's practice having our conversation with our trusted adult. So quick moment, I think often we come to these conversations and we're like, oh, I don't exactly remember what happened. It was this weird thing. So if you can, take a screenshot, take a screen grab, take a picture with your phone. If it's something that happened on social media, if it's a text conversation, bring your phone with you so you don't get frantic in the moment and put pressure on yourself to exactly remember what you saw or heard. Same thing if it's something you overheard in a conversation, make a quick note, and that can be with a pen and paper, or that can be with your phone in the Notes app. You can do it as a draft email or draft text on your phone. It just looks like you're texting. Keep in mind that it's easier to come to the conversation with a record of what you saw or heard than to put the pressure on yourself to try and remember in the moment. All right, here's kind of a roadmap about our conversation with our trusted adult. We want to be direct. We want to explain exactly who we want to talk about. I must talk to you about Sabrina. We're going to explain what we saw, what we noticed. I've noticed this warning sign or threat. They've threatened to hurt themselves. I've noticed these warning signs where she's getting really angry all the time for no reason. And here are some text messages that she sent me. Share what you've seen. Finally, you can provide information for next steps. You can let your trusted adult know, I need your help to get this person help now, and share where they can find that person, what their next class is, what period they have next, if you have their phone number, if you have their parents' phone number, any contact information that you might have. So this is our roadmap, right? Classic example of how this conversation could go. I must talk to you about Sabrina. She's threatened to hurt herself. She sent me these texts, and I need your help to get her help. You can find her next period. She's going to be in Miss Diaz's class. That's a great example. Keep in mind, though, the conversation might not always look like this. So I will just say in my life, the conversation didn't look like this. I mentioned to you all that I didn't know what to do, right? I just kind of bought into this myth of like, oh, I think she just wants attention. I don't know. And I didn't do anything. Luckily for everyone involved, Sabrina's boyfriend at the time did do something. He went ahead and said, all right, I'm going to talk to somebody. And he just went in on Monday morning after our Thanksgiving break and showed his phone to a teacher. He didn't introduce it. He didn't say anything. He was just like, I think you should look at this, and handed them his phone with the text from her explaining what she'd been going through and what she'd been thinking about. Keep in mind that also is a great way to say something, right? You don't have to always have this perfect conversation following these 3 steps. The most important thing is that you say something. So it might not always look like a personal conversation. It might just you be like, hi, this is my phone, and then you run away, right? But the most important thing is that you do say something, you do talk to your trusted adult. Even if it feels awkward or you don't feel like you're explaining things super well, just talking through what you saw, showing them what you saw is really, really helpful. So just reviewing our steps before I give us some time for questions. We want to look for warning signs and threats. And remember, those could be emotional warning signs. It could be that somebody is kind of changing their personality. They're very angry all the time, or they're really upset. They're withdrawing from us. Maybe they're bullying other people, making other people feel unsafe, or being bullied at school. When we notice a warning sign or a threat, we want to act immediately and take it seriously. When someone makes a comment that makes us feel like, oh, something's going on, even if we're not 100% sure, we still want to get them help and support. And we do that by saying something to our trusted adult or our placeholder trusted adult, whoever that might be. Quick moment, if you were like, this is an interesting conversation, I'd like to talk more about this and have more conversations about getting people help, your Save Promise Club is a great place to do that. And you can check out your Save Promise Club at Sandy Hook or at Sandy Hook Promise, or use the hashtag Save Promise Club. Those are spaces that are designed for you to have more conversations about mental health, supporting people who are in mental health crisis spaces, and just making sure everybody's okay in your school. Quick moment as well, we do have our National Youth Advisory Board, and there will be open spots next year. So if you're interested in having conversations with students across the country about this, about mental health and supporting each other, that's something your teacher can get you the link to. So just to review before I break for questions, why are we saying something? Realistically, you're seeing and hearing a lot of things that other people aren't. I think we often assume like, oh, I know this person in this way, and that's how everyone knows them. But honestly, you spend so much more time with people you go to school with and anyone else kind of beyond their school life, right? More than their parents or their guardians, more than a lot of their family, you see people and are spending time with people in a way that lots of people aren't. And that doesn't just mean it's happening in the school space, right? In those larger spaces I mentioned, like, when you're texting people, when you're on social media platforms, when you're in threads with people, you're getting to know them in a way that's much deeper than maybe just the people who they see in the morning or the afternoon when they come home, right? You are seeing and hearing things all the time that other people are missing. And when you do take action after you see or hear something, you can reduce violence, suicides, and threats. You can make people feel safer and more comfortable in school. So I'm going to end our presentation and break for questions because I want to make sure I get to everyone's questions. So someone's first question was, what if someone's bullying you for how you look? And they mentioned the idea of it happening in your own family. This is always something you can talk to your trusted adult about. And for some of us, our trusted adult might be someone in our family. For some of us, it might be somebody who's outside of our family, maybe at school. So always, if you're being made to feel uncomfortable or unsafe because of how you look, always talk to your trusted adult, let them know what's going on with you, and they can get you some support and some help. So I do notice a couple people are typing in the Google Doc, just so you know, there is like a 20-second delay between my video and the Google Doc. So there are going to be a couple, I'm just going to wait for everyone to send in their things. There might be a couple of minutes of silence while I'm waiting. So I'll be here watching the Google Doc, answering questions as they come in. In the meantime, if you don't have a question, you're just kind of hanging out and waiting, I want you to go ahead and work on that homework, which is our trusted adult list. So keep in mind, we're looking for 3 names, and ideally we would have a contact information for each person on that list. So ideally you'd have a name and then a phone number and an email, a name, a phone number, and an email, a name, a phone number, and an email. If your trusted adult list is incomplete, if you can't get to 3 people, that's fine. Just let your teacher know, hey, I couldn't get to 3, and they can help you out with that. If you're a trusted adult, you have all the names, so you don't have the contact information, that can be your homework outside of school, is to get that contact information. All right, I'll leave our Google Doc open for a couple minutes, but if you have no questions, if your classroom is like, no, I think we're good, I'm going to leave you to do your trusted adult list in your class. All right, so I'm not seeing anything come in the Google Doc. If you're still typing, we'll be here waiting. But if you're like, nope, no questions from my class, we're feeling good, go ahead and close out of the YouTube Live, and you can use the rest of the class period to work on those trusted adult lists. All right, someone asked this great question about warning signs within yourself. So I would say if you've noticed any of the signs I've mentioned, right? If you've noticed that you've had some mood changes, some emotional changes, and you are getting angry or you are feeling really intense feelings of sadness, if you're withdrawing from your friends, if you're thinking about hurting yourselves or hurting other people, if you have been bullied or you've been doing some bullying, those are all warning signs we can see in ourselves. And you can go to your trusted adult and say, I've noticed some changes in myself. I need some help. And they can get you connected to help. And something I do always say is that getting help looks different for different people. So sometimes I think there's this idea that we maybe don't want to seek help because we think it's going to be a dramatic, intense thing. Sometimes it just means that we have lunch with our trusted adult once a week. Sometimes it just means that our trusted adult checks in with us every Friday and to ask us how we're doing, right? It looks different for different people. So if you are noticing a warning sign in yourself, any of the things I brought up, if that applies to kind of what's happening in your own brain and your own thoughts, go ahead and tell your trusted adult so they can help you with some support. All right, someone asked, how do I approach a teacher without my information being shared? So keep in mind, if you are going to go to a teacher, you are going to just need to let them know who you are. But that doesn't mean your information gets shared with the person who you're saying something about, or your information gets shared with the larger school, right? You always want to go ahead and say something when you do notice something's going on, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be like a poster up in the hallway saying that you said something, right? I will say there is always a chance that if you say something, maybe, you might need to talk to the person who said something about, they might get angry at you, and that is a risk we run. But like I was telling our last class, in terms of risk calculations, the risk of a friend being a little bit angry at us is always the better risk to take than risking a friend isn't in the world with us anymore. So yes, both things are risky, but we would rather our friends are here, maybe a little angry with us for a couple weeks, than our friends aren't present, aren't around for us. All right, so I had a couple of questions about what Sandy Hook is and kind of what Sandy Hook Promise is. So just for anyone who's unfamiliar, several years ago, there was a mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And after that tragedy, a couple of parents who lost children in the shooting came together and started our organization, Sandy Hook Promise, to make sure that everyone is safe in school. And that looks like a lot of different things. One of the components of what we do is we talk to people to make sure you keep each other safe and you know what being safe feels like and what being safe looks like. That's part of our program. That's why we came and talked to you today. Okay, someone's asking this really important question. If someone's suicidal, will they be taken from their home? Do they have to be put in a hospital? And the answer is, it honestly depends on the person. It depends on what's happening with them. So for some people, if they're really, really unsafe, they might have to go to the hospital for a couple of days, but it's rarely longer than that. For some people, it just means that they go to the counselor more often. It's going to depend on the person. And like I said, help looks different for different people. For some people, it might just be that they go to the counselor once. For some people, maybe they'll start going once a week or once a month, but don't not say something because you think there are going to be certain consequences. Because in reality, what happens often looks different than what we assume is going to happen. And that's because we all watch the same TV and the same movies, and we buy into these big stereotypes about what getting help looks like, when in reality, it looks different for different people. So if you are concerned, I have a friend who's thinking about hurting themselves or dying by suicide, but I don't want them to get in trouble. I don't want them to have to leave their home. That might not be what happens for them. In fact, it's more likely that they will stay at home and get more support and more help. So go ahead and take that action and say something. So someone said, I have a friend who's already sought help, but it's not working and she's still not feeling safe. So I'll answer this in two ways. The first is that sometimes I think we want immediate fixes. So we're like, oh, I asked for help. on Monday, on Tuesday, and I don't feel better. So keep in mind, sometimes it does take a while for your help to really kick in because you have to build new habits and make a lot of changes in your body and in your life. It might take time. But the second thing is you're always allowed to ask for help in multiple places. So even if your friend is maybe going to counseling and getting help in that space, maybe she also needs help from her friends. Maybe she also needs help from an outside support. Maybe she needs to go to multiple counselors. And that is what happened with my friend Sabrina. She went to counseling in school, but she also had a counselor outside of school, right? Sometimes we need help from multiple sources. So your friend is always allowed to keep asking for help and to ask for help in different places. That's why I make sure we have 3 people on our trusted adult list. So we have backups. We have other people to talk to and other places to go. So someone asked this question, what if you don't have access to a phone? You can always contact your trusted adult by email or face-to-face if you're going to see them in person. And you can always let your teacher know at the end of class today, like, hey, I don't know how to get in touch with this person. I'm not quite sure how to get that contact information. And they can help you figure that out. But you don't have to only get in touch by phone. The other thing is if you want to use any of the helplines I mentioned, those also have websites. So you also, if you Google the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline or Crisis Text Line, you can also use the web browser, not the phone. All right, and someone was asking, like, why do these things always seem linked to shooting? I would just say that there are lots of different ways that we kind of come to help each other. And sometimes the way people come to help each other is because they've experienced personal tragedy or personal loss. And that doesn't mean that it's the only way you can come into the space of helping other people, but it's often how we get to it. For example, like I have this very personal experience with my classmate Sabrina, and maybe if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't have wanted to do this work and get involved with this, right? I think a lot of us come into the space of talking about mental health because we personally or a friend of ours has experienced a mental health crisis. And that can be difficult because we have to talk about kind of intense things, but that's also really helpful because your experience can always be useful to another person. Okay, so a couple of questions that have come in. Someone asked, what if I don't have a trusted adult? You can always use that placeholder trusted adult. So that's whoever you are with in their class period right now, that person can be your placeholder trusted adult. Another placeholder trusted adult can be the principal or the vice principal, and your final placeholder trusted adult can be whoever class you're going to next. So whoever your next class is, whether that's today or the first period you go to tomorrow, they can also be a placeholder trusted adult. So someone asked, how do you comfort a friend who's going through something? What words do you say? I always say the biggest thing you can do is listen. I think a lot of time when someone is sharing something really intense, we have this gut reaction. We want to change the subject because it's really hard to listen, but you can just sit with somebody and say, yeah, tell me more about what's happening. You can always use the language of, I'm so sorry this is happening. I'm here to listen. I'm here to support you. And if you do think, okay, I really want to get this person help, you can let them know, I think we should talk to somebody and get you a little bit of help. And then you can go to your trusted adult. I think the biggest thing for somebody who's going through something is to sit and listen. Don't change the subject, even though that's easier to do. And sometimes when people have talked for like 10 minutes, they're like, thanks, yeah, I feel better. And then you can go maybe like watch TV, you can watch Netflix party, you can do something else together. Sometimes people just need to talk for like 10 or 20 minutes. And then it feels better just to have shared what's going on with them with another person. Sometimes they will need more help and you'll need to go to your trusted adult. But honestly, just listening and being able to sit with kind of the awkwardness of just sitting and listening is the best thing you can do. Okay, so someone had this question. What should you do if you told your trusted adult and your friends, but it's still not working? So that's why I always say we have multiple people on our trusted adult list, right? So if you've told one person, you can always tell more. And I always put 3 people on a trusted adult list. Your list could be 10 people. Your list could be 15 people. The best way to do this is to tell multiple people and to have multiple people involved. So if you've told someone something's going on in the past and they ignored it or they didn't get kind of the action that you thought they should, go to the other people on your list. So keep in mind, there might be 3 people on your list. There might be 10 people on your list. Maybe there's just one person on your list and you've been like, I told them before it didn't work. let your teacher know, and they can help you brainstorm who else could be on your list and who else you could talk to. Maybe it's a placeholder trusted adult, maybe it's a trusted adult who you haven't thought of, but keep in mind, you can always go to multiple people. So if you're not able to talk to anyone, if you don't have kind of a moment where you feel like you can talk to somebody, again, keep in mind, you can use those national lifelines, but I think our idea is not that you stop someone from taking an action. It's not your job to prevent somebody. It's not your job to kind of, be the social worker or be the carer for somebody. Your job is to let adults know what's going on. So as soon as you've told your trusted adult, they're going to take actions to keep people safe. So it's not your job to stop somebody from hurting somebody else. It's not your job to kind of be the person in between them. Your job is to make sure that you are taking care of your friends. And if you notice a warning sign or a threat, you tell your trusted adults, they can get that person help. So once you've told adults, plural, once you've told multiple trusted adults, then they will take over. They will take kind of the lead on that and make sure that person gets safe. So somebody asked, if your parent is maybe somebody who's not comfortable with you reaching out or is monitoring your activity, how do we reach out? Keep in mind, if you're remote learning, you can always send a message in Zoom to your teacher, your trusted adult. Keep in mind, if you're seeing your teachers face-to-face, you can do that. You're only, there's not only one way to reach out. You don't have to only reach out face-to-face or only reach out via text or via email. Keep in mind, there are spaces when you kind of will be with your trusted adult in a more intimate setting, right? Maybe when you're in class together, or if it's maybe a coach, maybe a practice, and you can let them know kind of when you have that time together, hey, this is what's going on with me. It's not really a conversation I can have with my parents, but I wanted to let you know. All right, everyone. So I'm not seeing any more questions popping up, but if you have a question you've been waiting for, definitely put it in the Google Doc. And in the meantime, we have just a couple minutes left. So if anyone hasn't been working on their trusted adult list, definitely take this time to get to writing or typing, however you're learning today, and put those 3 names or try and get to those 3 names on your trusted adult list. I'll give us about another minute for questions, and then we'll go ahead and close out the YouTube live so you can all get to writing on your list. Oh, this is a perfect question. I love this question someone just sent in. So if I myself am struggling, how can I gently tell a friend who's struggling that I can't really be the support system for her? It's a really great question because it's something that adults struggle with all the time. I'll just say you can always use the language of, hey, I'm here to listen, but also, so there's some things going on with me right now. So can I not be the only person you talk to about this? Maybe we can talk to a couple of friends about it so that you have multiple people to go to. Because I'm a little bit in a space where I don't have the time to be as good a listener as I want to be there for you in the way I want to be, but I want to make sure you're cared for. And I know that's kind of a long speech. So the 1 sentence version of that is, I can't listen for as long as I want to right now, but if you let me know who else we can talk to about this, we can all talk together. And that way you're kind of sharing that maybe burden of being the person who somebody goes to, sharing that load. And keep in mind, again, you can always go to your trusted adult, even if somebody isn't thinking about hurting themselves or someone else. If you're just like, my friend needs a lot of help and needs some support, you can always go to your trusted adult and say, like, I can't really give this person the support I want to give them right now. Can you help me with that? All right, everyone. I want us to take our last 5 minutes of class to write our trusted adult list, but if you have a question that didn't get answered, Keep in mind, teachers, you can always email Miss Damon and she'll go ahead and forward them onto me via email so I can respond to questions via email as well. That's always an option for you. I'm going to go ahead and give us this last couple minutes. Go ahead and close out of the YouTube live. I'm going to stay on, Miss Loftus, Miss Damon, just so we can close out together. But teachers, go ahead and close out of the YouTube live. Make sure your students are writing that list. And if they need a couple extra minutes, you're welcome to hold them for a couple extra minutes, but get started on that list. And thank you all for coming today. You asked great questions. I really appreciate it.